Jinger Duggar arrest. Jinger stole $1 million big betrayed. Hello guys, welcome back to my channel. For Duggar family latest news update, please subscribe the channel and press the bell icon. The August heat in Arkansas felt unusually heavy, not because of the weather, but because of the tension hanging over the Duggar family like a storm ready to break. For weeks, rumors had circulated online, whispers of missing funds, questionable transactions, and Jinger Duggar Voulo's name being quietly mentioned in connection with a shocking scandal. No one in the family wanted to believe it. Not Michelle, not Jim Bob, not even Jeremy, her husband, though he had seen the cracks forming before anyone else. But when the police cars finally rolled up that quiet morning, their sirens muted, yet their presence undeniable, the truth could no longer be ignored. The knock on the door. It was early, too early for the Voulo household in Los Angeles to expect visitors. Jeremy was pouring coffee when the loud, deliberate knock rattled the front door. Jinger, in her robe, looked at him nervously. "Are you expecting anyone?" she whispered. Jeremy shook his head. Not this early. When he opened the door, two LAPD officers stood there, grim and formal. Jeremy Voulo, YES, IS Jinger Nicole Voulo home. Jinger stepped forward, her heart racing. "I'm here." The officer's words cut like a knife. "Mrs. Voulo, you're under arrest for financial fraud and theft exceeding $1 million. Gasps filled the house. Their little daughter, Felicity, peeked from the hallway, confused at the sudden commotion. Jinger's knees buckled, and Jeremy had to catch her arm. "This has to be a mistake," he stammered. "You can't just," but the officers already had handcuffs ready. The news breaks. Within hours, every tabloid, gossip blog, and news channel ran with the headline. Reality TV star Jinger Duggar Voulo arrested for $1 million theft. The story spread like wildfire. According to preliminary reports, the missing money had been siphoned from a trust fund connected to Duggar family business ventures. Some of those ventures were already under scrutiny from past controversies. The accusations alleged that Jinger had been quietly moving money into secret accounts over the last year. Jim Bob, back in Arkansas, nearly dropped his phone when the news alert flashed across his screen. Michelle burst into tears. "This can't be true," she sobbed. "Not Jinger. She wouldn't do something like this." But Jim Bob wasn't so sure. Deep down, he remembered heated arguments with Jinger months ago about money, independence, and her desire to distance herself from family control. Now the family's carefully crafted image, already cracked from Josh's scandals, was in shambles again. Jeremy's anguish. At the police station, Jeremy tried desperately to reassure his wife. He paced the waiting area, his Bible clutched in one hand, his phone buzzing nonstop in the other. Reporters crowded outside, shouting questions. "Did you know about the money? Pastor Voulo, was your wife running a scam? Are the Duggar kids involved?" Jeremy felt betrayed not just by the public, but by the very idea that Jinger, the woman he had defended for years, might have kept something so enormous from him. When he was finally allowed a brief visit, Jinger's eyes were swollen from crying. "Jeremy, I swear to you, I didn't mean for this to happen," she whispered through tears. "What do you mean?" Didn't mean. His voice trembled, with a mix of love and anger. "Is it true?" She looked down, ashamed. I moved some money. I thought I'd pay it back before anyone noticed. I just wanted us to have freedom from Dad's control, Jeremy. I wanted to build a life where we weren't constantly under his shadow." Jeremy felt like the ground had been ripped from beneath him. He had begged her for honesty, had warned her about shortcuts, but he never imagined it would come to this. The family divides. The Duggar household erupted into chaos once the news sank in. Some siblings defended Jinger. Jill, who had long been estranged from Jim Bob and Michelle, said if Jinger took that money, it's probably because she was desperate to finally have control of her own life. You can't blame her completely when the system Dad created trapped us for so long. Jessa, on the other hand, was furious. Stealing is stealing, Jill. Don't twist it into some act of rebellion. She betrayed all of us. Joanna wept quietly, caught between loyalty to her sister and shame for what the world now thought of their family. And Jim Bob? His anger was volcanic. "I built this empire. I kept this family afloat, and now Jinger is tearing it all apart. She's no better than Josh." Michelle flinched at those words, her hands shaking as she tried to calm him down. But nothing could calm the storm. Courtroom firestorm. The trial began within weeks. The courtroom was packed with reporters, family members, and curious onlookers. Prosecutors laid out their evidence: bank transfers, email records, and even a laptop found in Jinger's possession containing spreadsheets of diverted funds. Jeremy sat behind her every day, his face a mask of quiet pain. Jinger's defense argued that she hadn't stolen the money for luxury or greed, but to break free from a system of control that left her financially dependent on Jim Bob. They painted her as a woman trapped between loyalty to family and the desperate need for independence. But the prosecution countered sharply: independence does not excuse fraud. She took over $1 million. That's not a mistake, that's a calculated theft. The words rang heavy. Jeremy's breaking point. One evening after court, Jeremy sat alone in their darkened living room. Photographs of happier days stared back at him from the walls: family vacations, ministry events, Jinger smiling with the kids. He buried his face in his hands. How could you do this, Jinger? He whispered to himself. The betrayal wasn't just about the money. It was about trust. He had stood by her through every storm, defended her against critics, even distanced himself from the Duggar family for her sake. And now she had hidden this from him. When Jinger called him from jail that night, his voice was cold. I don't know if I can forgive you. Her sobs on the other end were heartbreaking, but his heart had hardened. The sentence. The verdict came swiftly. Guilty on charges of fraud and theft exceeding $1 million. The judge sentenced Jinger to 5 years in federal prison. The courtroom erupted in gasps. Michelle broke down, wailing uncontrollably, while Jim Bob sat stone-faced, his pride shattered. Jeremy closed his eyes, a single tear slipping down his cheek. Jinger collapsed into the arms of the officers, whispering, I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. Fallout. The family fractured in ways no one could have predicted. Jim Bob doubled down on control, vowing that no other child would ever embarrass him again. Michelle retreated into silence, her faith shaken. Some siblings, like Jill and Jana, continued to defend Jinger, publicly arguing that her actions were the product of years of manipulation and lack of financial freedom. Others, like Jessa and Josiah, cut off contact entirely. Jeremy, now a single parent in all but name, tried to shield their children from the storm. But Felicity kept asking the question he couldn't answer: when is mommy coming home? Letters from prison. From her prison cell, Jinger began writing letters to her children, to Jeremy, even to Jim Bob. One letter, she wrote. I wanted to be free, but in chasing freedom the wrong way, I lost everything that mattered. I betrayed the people I love most. I hope one day you can forgive me. Her letters were raw, filled with regret. Slowly, Jeremy began to soften. He brought the children to visit her, though the sight of them pressing their hands against the glass broke both their hearts. The reckoning. As months passed, the media frenzy died down, but the damage remained. The Duggar family name was tarnished further. Churches that once welcomed them with open arms now kept their distance. Book deals dried up. Speaking invitations vanished. But in the quiet aftermath, something unexpected began to happen. Jeremy, through his ministry, started speaking about forgiveness, not just as a preacher, but as a man broken by betrayal. His sermons reached people who had also been hurt by loved ones. And Jinger, inside prison walls, started leading Bible studies for other women, turning her shame into a testimony of redemption. Reunion. After 3 years, Jinger was granted early release for good behavior. The day she walked out, Jeremy was waiting. He wasn't holding flowers or balloons, just their 2 children, who ran into her arms. Jeremy looked at her, his expression unreadable. Finally, he said softly, we've both been through hell. But maybe we can start again. Jinger broke down, clutching her family as tears streamed down her face. It wouldn't erase the past. The betrayal would always be part of their story. But forgiveness, however fragile, gave them a chance at something new. Epilogue. The lesson. Years later, when asked about that dark chapter of their lives, Jinger spoke openly. I thought freedom meant breaking away by any means necessary. But true freedom doesn't come from running or stealing. It comes from truth, from love, from forgiveness. I lost everything once. I never want to lose it again. The Duggar family remained divided, scarred by scandal. Some relationships healed. Others never did. But one thing was certain. The world would never look at the Duggars the same way again. Jessa Duggar arrested husband's reaction sparks outrage. The August sun beat down on the small Arkansas town of Springdale, but the heat in the courthouse was something entirely different. Tension buzzed in the air like a hive ready to erupt. Every seat was full. Whispers swirled through the gallery, and the media's flashing cameras lit up the front steps outside. At the center of it all was Jessa Duggar Seawold, sitting rigid in her seat at the defendant's table. The normally composed and smiling Duggar daughter now wore an expression that was a mixture of exhaustion, defiance, and disbelief. Her hair, usually styled for TV appearances and Instagram posts, hung loose around her shoulders. The charges were serious: fraudulent property dealings, obstruction of justice, and tampering with evidence in connection to a community housing project gone wrong. For weeks, rumors had swirled online about shady deals involving a local charity, and now Jessa's name was front and center in the scandal. Beside her sat her attorney, a tall man with sharp features named Thomas Garrison. Across the aisle, the prosecuting attorney leafed through a thick binder of evidence. But all eyes kept drifting to the man sitting a few rows back in the audience, Ben Seawold, Jessa's husband. Ben's face was tight, jaw clenched. His arms were crossed, and he refused to meet Jessa's eyes. That in itself was enough to send the gossip mill spinning. The Duggars had always presented a united front, but today, that facade seemed to be cracking, the arrest that shocked everyone. Just 2 weeks earlier, the Duggar family had been gathered at their home for Sunday dinner when law enforcement vehicles rolled into the driveway. Cameras from a local news station had caught the whole thing. Officers approached the front door, and Jim Bob, the family patriarch, stepped outside with a forced smile, trying to keep his composure. When they asked for Jessa, she appeared from the hallway, her children clinging to her dress. Without explaining details, officers informed her she was under arrest. The moment her wrists were cuffed, chaos broke out. Michelle Duggar cried out in shock. Jana covered her mouth with both hands, and Ben stepped forward, but not to defend her. Instead, he looked at the officers and said coldly, "Do what you need to do. I'll be home with the kids." That sentence, caught clearly on camera, went viral within hours. Some fans accused him of betrayal, others defended him, but no one could deny that it painted a picture of a marriage under extreme strain. Courtroom whispers now. In the courthouse, Ben's absence from the defense table was a statement in itself. Normally, Duggar spouses sat loyally by each other's side, offering emotional support. His decision to sit apart and not even glance her way was fueling speculation. Behind him, Anna Duggar leaned forward to whisper something to Joanna. Jim Bob sat stiffly, eyes fixed on the judge, while Michelle dabbed at her eyes with a tissue. The prosecution began to lay out its case. Jessa had allegedly been involved in falsifying documents to approve the sale of a charity-owned property to a private investor at a fraction of its market value. The investor was later revealed to be a business partner of a Seawold family acquaintance. Jessa speaks. When the judge finally allowed the defense to respond, Jessa took the stand. Her voice was steady at first, but there was an undercurrent of frustration. "I have never stolen anything in my life," she began. "Yes, my name was on those documents. Yes, I signed off on the sale. But I was told everything was legal. I didn't profit from this. My intention was to help the community, not hurt it." The prosecutor pounced, pointing out inconsistencies in her statements to investigators and noting the sudden deletion of emails from her personal account just days before the investigation began. Jessa's jaw tightened. "I deleted emails because I was scared. I didn't know what they'd think. I didn't want my family dragged through the mud again." A ripple went through the room. It was a veiled reference to her brother Josh's legal troubles, a wound that still ran deep for the entire family. Ben's outrageous reaction. Midway through her testimony, Jessa glanced toward Ben. Just a flicker of her eyes, a silent plea. But instead of sympathy, she was met with a look of cold fury. He shook his head slowly, as if to say, "You brought this on yourself." Witnesses sitting nearby later claimed Ben muttered something under his breath. You lied to me, Jess. You lied to all of us. This quiet but devastating moment became the clip every news outlet replayed on loop. To the public, it looked like the husband had turned against his wife in her darkest hour. Duggar family divided. After a short recess, the family gathered in the hallway. Cameras and microphones swarmed them. Jim Bob tried to brush past reporters, saying only we're trusting God's plan. Inside the courthouse cafeteria, tensions boiled over. Joanna confronted Ben. Why are you acting like she's already guilty? She's your wife. Ben's voice was low but sharp. She's my wife, but she's been keeping secrets from me for months. Do you think I didn't notice the late-night phone calls? The locked filing cabinet? Asked her about it, and she told me it was nothing important. Now look where we are. Jill Duggar stood nearby, torn. She had always been close to Jessa, but also understood Ben's frustration. The sisters had already lived through enough scandals to know that half-truths could destroy a family surprise witness. Just when it seemed the trial might drag on for weeks, the prosecution called a surprise witness. Caleb testified that Jessa had personally asked him to make the numbers look better for the property sale. He claimed she promised him a cut of future profits if he kept quiet. Gasps filled the courtroom. Jessa's attorney immediately attacked his credibility, pointing out Caleb's criminal record and history of lying to avoid charges. But the damage was done. The jury now had an image of Jessa as someone who could be calculating and manipulative. Breaking point on the third day of the trial, after a grueling cross-examination. Do you think I wanted this? She cried. Do you think I wanted my children to see their mother dragged through court? I was trying to fix something that was already broken. Maybe I made mistakes, but I'm not a criminal. Michelle's sobs echoed through the courtroom. Jim Bob squeezed her hand, but his face remained unreadable. The verdict. After hours of deliberation, the jury returned. The room fell silent as the foreman stood, on the charge of fraudulent property dealings, not guilty. A wave of relief washed over Jessa.